Hello dear viewer, thanks for tuning in. Zaidi boy here as such. And for once I'm not bipolar manic. So for the last several years I've been struggling with bipolar syndrome, and I'm essentially a normal guy, but so that's one of Toronto's famous GO trains, GO transit system. This is a nice trail that basically runs from Dundas Street to Bloor Street, where we're headed. And as I was saying, it's been a while since I've made a movie, and the majority of the hundreds of movies on my YouTube channel I had made or did make during periods of bipolar mania. Now this has been a huge theme in my life over the last several years, since 2011, which is when I was diagnosed with bipolar syndrome. And for me, it's not a natural state. I'm not naturally bipolar as such, although everyone tends to be depressed at some point in some points in their life, and active or hyperactive or energized at other points. And really, if you take any person and put them in situations of extreme stress, they begin to act out. And bipolar people act out a bit too much, I guess. In any case, this video is not about bipolar syndrome or nothing like that. Unfortunately, because of my condition, I essentially destroyed my life. I used to sell software for Fortune 500 type companies, and then started doing my own sales and marketing consulting. And in any case, I lost everything. And finally, over the last few months, I think I finally gotten to a point where, I am back to being myself. Hopefully, you can be the judge. In any case, and the whole root of it for me was not smoking weed. Smoking marijuana brings out my latent bipolar tendencies, and smoking weed's not for everyone. As much as I love it, and as much as I was the guy who was the biggest proponent of it, in as much as I would always tell people that weed's not a drug because it's not synthetic, it's not dangerous, it's not intoxicating, and it's not addictive, right? Versus alcohol, which is all of those things, or something like cocaine. In any case, I was listening to an audiobook. I'm listening to an audiobook of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life, an Antidote for Chaos. Now, you may or may not have heard of Jordan Peterson. I hero worship the guy. He's a neuroscientist and a professor of psychology and a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist, I guess. Teaches at the University of Toronto, used to teach at Harvard. His YouTube channel generates millions of views, all this kind of stuff. And he's a very intense guy. He talks about Nietzsche and the role of meaning, essentially, in your life. Meaning. This is very important. He used to be an atheist, and now he's kind of a hardcore Christian, and he weaves biblical themes into his book and his speaking and so forth. In any case, that's the UP Express, Union to Pearson Airport, Union Station to Pearson Airport. So Toronto's a lovely place. Toronto's such a lovely, vibrant city, full of art and culture and artists, and it's apparently the most multicultural city in the world. I've had people tell me, viewers say, well, listen, don't talk that much about Toronto, but it is what it is, right? I love the city, and it's hard to live here and not have that inform your thought process and whatnot. In any case, I was listening to Jordan Peterson's audiobook, so I've subscribed to Audible and you get one free book a month. And by the way, audiobooks are very expensive, apparently. Like Jordan Peterson's book is like $35. And that's quite a chunk of change, right? I mean, you can get there's an app called Overdrive, and you can get that and download that on your phone. And it allows you to procure audiobooks from your local library. If you live in a moderately big city, you can subscribe to Overdrive or sign up for the app and whatnot. Just make sure you're a member at your local library, and basically you can download free audiobooks. There's also free audiobooks available online. In any case, Audible is, I unfortunately lost a movie at the Toronto Library. Like, I owe them a movie and I lost it. I got to order it from Amazon to get my library membership back in sync. And as usual, I'm rambling on and on without talking about what I wanted to talk about, which is faith and reason. So in any case, and I've made videos like this before, like the hundreds of videos I have online are basically matched by hundreds more perhaps, or dozens or scores, where basically I've lost them in time or space on a hard disk somewhere, or just floating out and about there. But I guess these things bear repeating. I want to make the central point that faith is not, this whole concept of blind faith is just nonsensical. And atheists hammer this thing home again and again and again. Oh, well, the whole thing with religion is you're meant to believe in something for which there's no evidence or no rational basis. Wrong. It's all wrong. Like, if you ask me for proof of God, I'm not going to talk about proofs of God. I've got enough videos about that. But the whole universe is proof of God. This tree is proof of God. Order is proof of design. Order infers design. I made a video called Order Infers Design like years ago. I'm in the process of getting my book published, The No God Delusion, which is a rebuttal to Richard Dawkins' God Delusion. And God willing, I'll have an opportunity to enlighten people about these things. I mean, a lot of what atheists say are just misguided notions. Now, I was listening to this audiobook by Jordan Peterson, and it's like somewhere along the line, oh yes, it was Tolstoy. Now, one of Jordan Peterson's big themes is the unbearable intensity of being. Just being alive is so intense. Right? And I think most people can agree with this. By the time you've reached a certain age, life just seems to get harder and harder and more intense and harder to figure out. I suppose at one point you have things in order and things get better, or you get a handle on things. But for the longest time, into your 20s and 30s and even 40s or 50s, midlife crisis and all of that, for the longest time, you're just confronted by unbelievable suffering. Your suffering and the suffering of others. And everyone suffers. And the question of suffering becomes so intense that the only thing that makes suffering bearable is meaning. Meaning that you are going through something for a reason. If you're suffering, there's a reason behind it. It's like Nietzsche said, according to Jordan Peterson. Nietzsche said that if you have a why, then you can put up with any how. That's often misquoted, but, kind of means the same thing. Like if you join Amway, the multi-level marketing group, they'll say, well, you need to have a why. It's true, I guess. A why is something that gives you purpose and meaning. And Jordan Peterson's famous phrase is that the universe is not derived of matter. It's derived of what matters. Because as a neuroscientist, he says that even before, you're looking at a house, or you're looking at someone biking down the trail, or someone coming up the way with a dog, even before your brain assembles those pictures, like the picture of a house, it will only do that if there's meaning in it, right? So this house is meaningful, this tree is meaningful, this train coming up the way is meaningful, and that's the only reason I perceive it. So suffering, once again, is The question of suffering is the central question of life. Like one philosopher apparently said that the only question is whether or not to commit suicide. Really. And Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy, apparently at the height of his fame, according to Jordan Peterson, essentially was faced with this existential crisis, right? And he said, well, in the face of the brutality of life and the suffering and the pain and, you know, what people have to go through, in the face of all of this, you know, you're faced with four options, according to Tolstoy. You're faced with the option of ignoring it all, or you're faced with the, you know, there's a couple of things like this. I mean, pretty basic things. You can ignore it, or you can indulge in pleasures, right? Like drinking and drugs and partying, because at least you're getting something out of that, and there's some temporary cessation of your pain and misery and whatnot. Or you can become an evil person, right? An evil person. And one of or a nihilist, let's say, not an evil person, but a nihilist. Nihilist is essentially a person that looks at life and says, there's no meaning. This is all meaningless. We're just suffering endlessly, and we're all going to die and decay. So what's the point of anything? Now, there's an interesting verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jal says that we didn't create the heavens and the earths as a joke or without meaning. It's not all a big joke. No, there's meaning and there's purpose. We didn't create it meaninglessly or without meaning or without purpose or as a joke, right? So Tolstoy says, once again, you either ignore everything, or you indulge in pleasures, or you become a nihilist, or one of his options was, he said I can't, as a pretext to all of this, he says, well, I can't rely on faith, because faith is contrary to reason. So Leo Tolstoy put this out there, among other people. Like, this is what the atheist credo is, that religion and faith is the negation of reason. And so I'm here to tell you that all of this is nonsense. This is nonsense. This is all nonsense. Okay, so what is it? Here's my, first of all, my own humble exposition, and then I'll corroborate that with, a tradition or a saying from the family of Prophet Muhammad, who us Shia Muslims follow. So first of all, why are you good, dear user? Why are you a good person? I'm assuming you're a good person. Or are you not a good person? I think most people would say, yes, I try and be good. I'm a good person. I try and be honest. I don't steal from people, right? I don't hurt people. If I can, I help people and I benefit them. So there's a GO train station here. This is relatively new. So this wasn't here the last time I came by. My question is, why are you a good person? Are you a good person based on some kind of rationale or evidence, or, you know what I'm saying? The fact of the matter is, here's what it boils down to. The fact of the matter is that you know you should be a good person, right? The fact of the matter is that you know you should not lie. This is it. So, la ikraha fid din. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jal says, there's no compulsion in religion. La ikraha fid din. It's not a question of compelling yourself to do something against reason. In fact, religion and reason are intertwined. There's nothing in religion which doesn't accord with reason. Now, of course, you're going to be like, oh, well, what about the hijab, or what about cutting off people's heads and all this kind of stuff? All I'm trying to say is this. You know you should be good. You know you shouldn't lie. You know you shouldn't kill. You don't need anyone to explain these things to you. And in the same way, you have ingrained in your nature a sense of faith. Okay, so why do you get up in the morning? Because you have faith in a certain outcome, which is, it's not seen. You're going to get up and you're going to go to work. You're building towards some kind of future outcome. And this is all faith. And you have faith. And then you're overcome with obstacles. You face obstacles. You face hurdles along the way. You face challenges. What is it that gets you to keep going? It's like the thing with children, that apparently they fall down and get up thousands of times in order to learn how to walk. And so much so that they say, and you've probably heard, that if an adult failed that much at something, they would give up. Most adults, after 2 or 3 or 4 tries at something, essentially give up, right? So the thing that compels you to keep going is faith, and that's it. So that's what that is. And as far as the rest of it's concerned, it's all about ingrained morality. We know we should be good. We don't need someone to indoctrinate us on telling the truth. We know we should tell the truth. And you're either a good person who is considerate and cares about others and thinks about other people's well-being and tries to help others and tries to add value, or you ignore this ingrained human virtue or trait or characteristic or whatever, and you go against reason, and you go against your inner nature. Now, in as much as faith is concerned, first of all, there are proofs for God. Okay, there's plenty of them. This tree, everything's a proof of God. Any kind of order is proof of God. Or you're faced with the notion of a universe that just is. It's amazing. It's got all these inexplicable, beautiful patterns and natural phenomenon, and the way it's all unified, right? Right? And it just is. That's your answer to that, right? It just is. It's been around forever, right? So in any case, that's a long discussion. With regards to faith, once again, it's a feeling that everyone has. It's the feeling of it's the feeling you have of of humanity. I should be good. Right? It's just a feeling. Basically what we're doing is we're just corroborating our inner nature. We know we should be good, and we also know that we're going to succeed. Or do you not? So it's a choice, right? So, you might say, well, I've had these discussions with atheists, and it's like on Twitter, for example, and it's like, well, you're talking about self-confidence, that's something else. Anyway, I'm going to end this long rant with the story of faith from our sixth Imam, peace be upon him, the great grandson of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. He was asked about faith. He said, I guess it was a sailor or someone who asked him, and he gave the guy an analogy of someone in a ship, okay? You're in a ship, and you're out to sea, and there's a storm, and it turns into, this nightmare scenario, perfect storm kind of thing. And it's like the boat's being tossed about, people are falling off the side, and basically, you're going to die. Everything's being washed overboard, and screams and howls, and it's like, in the face of it, like your reason and everything is pointing towards your certain demise. And yet, you don't give up. You continue to hold on. You continue to struggle. You continue to fight. You might say, well, that's just natural and ingrained will to survive that every animal possesses. Whatever you call it, the Holy Imam, peace be upon him, described the scenario, and he said that now, despite the fact that for sure and with like absolute certainty, with an absolute assurance that you're going to perish, you're going to fly overboard, you're going to fall, and so on and so forth, and there's no escape. Regardless of this, regardless of what your reason's telling you, that part of you that insists on exerting yourself to stay alive, that part of you is faith. Right, that's what faith is. So that's it. That's it. So I hope that kind of sheds some light on the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, all I was trying to say is that faith is not the negation of reason. Okay, that's absolutely not what it is. On the other hand, the world of reason, okay, cannot explain, once again, things like beauty, things like honor, okay? There's as much justification to become a mafia gangster, okay, or whatever, or a pleasure-seeking hedonist, or whatever you want to do. You might say, well, oh yeah, you got to be honest because of this and this and this reason. There's enough reasons not to be dishonest. Like Jordan Peterson says quite succinctly, what's irrational about wanting to grab everything you can and come hell or high water and, give a damn to other people? That's irrational. That's an approach. And who's to say it's irrational or the wrong approach? But for the fact of our inner nature. And that's all it is. Right? So it's like I say at the end of the day, you don't have to believe in God, but you do have to believe in good, and they're the same thing. That's all it is. So I hope that kind of makes sense. I'd love to hear from you if you've got comments or questions, especially now that I'm more hopefully normal. Maybe I'll be making some more of these videos. Anyway, nice talking to you. Come to you from the trail, Toronto, 416 and all this stuff or whatever, however that goes. And talk to you later.